Hey everybody, this is Josh with These 50. Tonight is kind of a blog post. I wanted to talk about our experiences with purchasing an RV. With this trip, the trip is what's important. It's not really critical what we take the trip in. However, it is a big part of it because we're going to be living in it for such a long period of time. I do notice that people who live in them full-time start with one thing and then work their way up, change things around, and in the course of 5 years, they may have 5 or 6 or 7 vehicles that kind of house their adventures. For us, it's a little different. I don't feel like we're going to have time to swap around in 6.5 months in order to upgrade to the vehicles that we want. So it's taken a lot of research and a lot of time to find out what we can get, what we can afford, what we want to afford, and what's going to help and do the job with the trip. So about 3 to 4 weeks ago, we went to an RV show, and we took the time to sit in every single Class C and Class A that was within our price range. We had to have sat in 50 different RVs, just running from place to place, talking to different groups of salesmen, trying to find out what companies that we would actually want to deal with, who we felt would be honest, and stuff like that. So the first night of the show, we looked at everything. The second night of the show, we came back with our kids, and we looked at a few specific ones that we had enjoyed. One of them that we ended up looking at was the Ace 30.1. It's a 30-foot RV, and it's been our favorite RV since the beginning. It was the first time I saw it, I said, that's the one I want to get. When you walk in the front door, it's got a mudroom on the right-hand side where you can put dirty shoes and things like that. It has a motorized pull-down bunk in the front that you can actually drive while that bunk is deployed. It has a couch, dinette set, and a queen bed in the back. So they call it the Ace. It's kind of a cross between an A and a C, and they're calling it the Next Evolution. That's their marketing ploy. We spent several hours sitting in this Ace, kind of talking to people as they went through and finding out features and things like that about other RVs and what people thought of this one and why they liked it and why they didn't. This will be our first RV that we bought. But anyways, we ended up spending a lot of time talking to the salesman, and he was selling us, obviously, but he kind of recommended the Fleetwood Storm and took us over there, and we spent another hour, maybe an hour and a half, sitting in the Fleetwood Storm, exploring, talking about it, talking about what it had, and trying to decide what we wanted to do. The Storm was a little bit out of our budget, but the salesman assured us that there were a lot of things that could be done. I have a good credit score. It's not the best. It could be better, but it's high enough that there's a chance that some of these things would work out. First thing he told me was 0 down. We didn't believe him, but we thought if we started with 0 down, at least the banks would come back and tell us how much they wanted down. That didn't happen. 3 weeks later, and 6 credit checks and a whole bunch of envelopes pile on my desk that say, that our loan was denied because they didn't want to fund the amount of money that we were putting down, which was 0. They didn't want to fund the rest of the RV. We were told, okay, we got one more, and we'll let you know what happens with that. So a week and a half later, no word. I had already begun assuming that it wasn't going to work out. Started looking at another one, a Damon Avanti in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and talking with them and figuring out what to do. In the process of all this, I started checking my credit and noticed that my credit score had dropped over 20 points through the course of this process from one dealership checking and checking and checking and checking and checking my credit. Great. So now my credit score is down. Even though I challenge all of those checks, my credit score will not recover in time to buy the RV. So we're on plan C. We went back to that RV dealership, had a chat with them, pulled the Storm off of hold, said, we're not going to try this anymore. Came up with some other deals, traded in a car, and they had another vehicle that we thought would work. We sat down, we looked at the numbers, we looked at what the vehicle was, we looked in the vehicle, we did everything but test drive it. I know. don't get ahead of me. So I did everything but test drive it, knowing the thought is that it doesn't really matter what we have, but as long as it gets us there. So it met all the criteria. It was under warranty. It was 2010, so it was new enough. It had the features that we needed. It had bunk beds, things like that. And we don't really need bunk beds, but you tell a salesman that you're going on a 9-month trip with 4 people, and they really, 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 really want to sell you bunk beds. Fact is, I need a place for the kids to sleep in the front, and for my wife and I to sleep in the back with a little bit of privacy. So that's what we really need. But anyways, so this particular vehicle, everything seemed to fit perfectly, except it was a Class C. It was tight. It was a little hard to fit in the front, a little bit smaller than what I expected. But we said, fine, we'll hold it. We'll try and test drive it. We'll come back and test drive it, and we'll see how it goes. So we put it on hold. We started talking financing, trading in a car, down payments, stuff like that. We got to a really good package, and all that was left is the test drive. So we got there for the test drive, and it was terrible. Didn't fit in the passenger. My wife and I, neither of us fit in the passenger seat. It was incredibly uncomfortable, incredibly loud. The engine on this thing, we had to yell in order to be heard. Like it was bad. And everybody's like, "Oh, this is normal. This is the way it sounds." So we had to think about it real long and hard. Came home, talked about the pros and cons. It was miserable. I mean, just driving up the mountain by 10 minutes was tiring. It was all over the road. Just did not feel right. So we called them this morning and said, the salesman was out this morning. So we called and talked to the backup guy. Nice guy. If you're watching this video, I appreciate all the help you've done. All the help you've been. It was a nice kid. He's a little younger than me. He's not a kid, but anyways. Just discussed. It was so miserable, and we wanted to see if a Class A gas was that bad, because we were ready to just go to Albuquerque tomorrow and buy a diesel, because there's one available there. And if the gases were going to be this bad, there was no way we were going to drive them. So we took a really old beater of a Winnebago Vista out, and it was wonderful. It was quiet. We could carry on a conversation at normal voice levels and everything. It was fantastic. The inside was terrible. It smelled like mold. Definitely had water damage. We weren't going to buy the thing at all, but it was a test drive of a gas Class A. So that set us on a journey. That was fantastic. They didn't really have anything else at that dealership, so we started calling around. Found a place in Longmont that had 7 different units that we wanted to look at. So we called, like I said, arranged a time, went down, spent 2 hours walking through the units trying to figure out what we liked. And again, they had an Ace, but this time they had a 29.1. This 29.1 was about $10,000 lower than the 30.1 that we'd been sitting in 6 weeks ago. We loved it. We were sold on the Ace a long time ago. The fact that we have that overhead bunk that we can drop down, drive with it down, use it. So we've got the top half we can use for the storage, the bottom half the chairs swivel backwards. So it's everything that's good about the C and everything that's good about the A. Again, that was the last one that we looked at after looking at a whole bunch of other options. Brand new, 2014, and they really, really want to sell it to us. The price, I think, is pretty good. I always go back and research and regret whatever price we come up with, but came up with a pretty good price and kind of worked out how the down payments and everything like that's going to work. So this is kind of our last ditch effort. If this doesn't work, we're still moving forward 100%, but it'll be in a used, $40 some odd thousand RV, and it'll be great. It'll be perfect, and it'll be just what we need. But this is kind of a last ditch effort going after something that we actually really want and really like. 2-year warranty on the interior. The drivetrain and everything has a 3 or 5-year warranty, and it'll be a good, solid vehicle for us to use that we're going to put 20,000 miles on in the first 6 months of owning it, and then who knows what else we do with it. So that's what's going on now. Tomorrow we're going to go back in. We're going to drive the Ace. We've got the financial stuff figured out. We're going to drive it. We're going to finish structuring the deal. We're going to do the credit checks, and we're going to find out if tomorrow we have an RV. One problem, though. Because of its cost, the down payment is significantly higher than what we were looking at. It's about twice what we were looking at with this really noisy 2010 Class C that just drove us absolutely batty. That's also almost an entire month of expenses for the trip. We've gotten the trip expenses down significantly from our original start. We're able to take a car and have it roll into the RV, and so there's a payment there that's gone down. We've changed our cell phones a little bit. We've trimmed this, we've trimmed that. We've changed a lot of things, and dropped our sitting still expenses by almost $2,000, even with a business, running the business that we run. So we've trimmed, but we still have to come up with that down payment. We got to sell. We're selling. Our intent was to sell everything and use that as a down payment. Well, we pushed the sale back to the last week in the month, and we need to be out of the house after that. So whatever's left in the sale is going to charity after the sale, and then whatever money we get from the sale is going towards the RV. So we're going to put $1,000 down, and we're going to run the credit. We're going to see what happens, and suspense and everything else. By the end of it, we will find out if we have an RV about 2-3 days before we leave. So that'll be fun. So that's our update. Long-winded. Tomorrow we'll post some videos of the RV, of the test drive. A little bit more fun and engaging than this long, drawn-out story. Have a good day. Well, good night. I got a haircut. The last few videos I've done, I had hair, but normally I don't have hair, and so now I don't have hair anymore, and this is probably going to stay this way for a while.